it's not about the destruction of ideas. It's saying you don't need to have them anymore.
It's like the execution of books, isn't it?
If the AI companies themselves cannot keep up with their own tech, tell me how anyone else can keep up.
They want the stuff that's come before what they call internet slop.
You've got people who have spent years developing careers losing their jobs because their organisation's going, 1 minute, all I need is a £20 a month business plan to chat, and I've got social media strategists and copywriters and copy editors. The publishers are in a tailspin.
Hello and welcome back to the Bibliofilles. I'm Sophie.
And I'm Chaya.
And before we get started today, we just wanted to say thank you for making the time to listen to us. And we do hope you'll enjoy the conversation, and make sure that if you like what we're doing here, you like, subscribe, etc., wherever you get your podcasts. Now, on with the show.
We use books as a way of making sense of the world, from culture, politics to history, everything in between. But today's episode is a little different.
It is a little different, and we are a little tired, I think that's fair to say, because when we get consumed by a topic,
So true.
especially if it's something that's kind of culturally immediate, pressing, in the news, we go down that rabbit hole. Sometimes it's hard to get out of it, but we want to bring you those topics as and when they're hitting the news, I guess.
Exactly. And because we are connected to so many publishers and authors, and because of Instagram, we are in quite a unique position where we're not industry insiders.
No,
so
I love
people
that.
feel that they can talk to us.
You can talk to us.
We have been speaking to authors, creators, people working inside publishing that wanted to remain anonymous.
Teachers.
This is an episode where we are going to be talking about everything to do with AI and books, because it is a paradigm shifting moment here.
Absolutely. And I think the key is AI is an absolutely gargantuan topic. But really, the last week, we have all been confronted by some really, well, in some ways, they seem a bit mind-blowing, the images that we've seen. So the fact is, somewhere in a warehouse right now, there is a machine, a hydraulic guillotine, I think it's called, splicing the spine off a book, off many, many books, so that the pages become loose and they can be fed into a scanner. This is called destructive scanning. And now, this is not, by the way, because somebody wants to read that book, is it, Chaya?
No, it is because these pages are being fed via Anthropic into their LLM, and those images that you so beautifully describe, which literally sent shivers down my spine, of these books being destroyed, have sent shivers down the spine of millions of people who just feel like it's a personal attack. But also, that is juxtaposed with a settlement that Anthropic have just had to enter into, the court cases that are proliferating around this, and the authors that are being accused of using AI. And we've talked about this, haven't we, in our episode, This Book Shouldn't Have Been Published, on Shy Girl. But also, so you've got this reversal of the burden of proof that we're going to be talking about.
I love that, because you're a lawyer, you can actually give that legal perspective. But we've talked about this with regards to Daggermouth. We'll go into it more, but how authors are just being accused now without any real concrete proof. And that would never really happen in a court of law. These cases would have fallen apart, wouldn't they?
Absolutely. And for anyone listening, please do carry on, because I have stumbled across / been told about murmurings in the publishing industry behind closed doors of the response and how they protect authors, but also ensure that their books are beyond suspicion. And it flies in the face of everything that is supposed to be about books and the human process of creativity.
Yeah.
which we are going to get into. I'm not going to break that just yet. You're going to have to wait a little bit longer.
It's really fascinating and incredibly pertinent when you start delving into this, because it's like a web. There are just so many
Yes.
different elements to this conversation. I think we have to start obviously with Anthropic. That's kind of the crucial point, because it's the Anthropic case that is making the news and has actually been making the news for some time.
Yes.
The guillotining, it's like the execution of books, isn't it? The execution of books
I
that
love
we're
the way your mind
no, but
works.
well, I can't help
No,
when I see it splice
but
it
can I
off.
just say that's the point? Like, I love human creativity and I love the way your mind works so much. And like the way that you see that.
I'm very tired today. I think we've just been on a bit of a
No,
bender. Oh,
But
God.
the way you say, like, it's the execution of books, that I just don't think AI would ever be able to connect those things. And I love you.
Probably
and I
will
love
now.
and-
Probably will now.
because it's listening.
It's listening.
It's listening through our phones, Sophie.
But I think with this case regarding Anthropic, this actually is part of a broader picture of a legal case that has been happening.
Yeah.
And we've actually been speaking to somebody involved. But I think prior to delving into that, what I want to say, one of the most sinister aspects in my mind about what Anthropic have been doing, the execution of books, which they've been calling Project Panama, is that they say that this is their goal to scan every single book that exists in this way, and they didn't want anybody to know about it. So when you don't want people to know when you don't want anybody to know about what you're doing, you kind of, as somebody who's hearing about it, you're automatically thinking, oh God, this something isn't right. But it's interesting when you look at it in line with the case where Anthropic recently had to pay out $1.5 billion to many, many authors. It sounds like a hell of a lot of money. And don't get me wrong, $1.5 billion is a hell of a lot of money. But there were so many authors involved in this that I think they got about $2,000 or $3,000 each, which is fine. But, in the context, we have to look at how many books, how many authors were involved. So the court case, Bartz versus Anthropic, which happened at the end of last year, the issue that really came to the fore in that case was piracy. So it was found that Anthropic had basically been using pirate versions of these books that they'd attained via what you'd call shadow libraries online. So these books were essentially pirate copies, and they took that information from those authors, which was found to be a breach of copyright. Am I correct, my learned friend?
You absolutely are. You absolutely are. It was from data sets including LibGen, and the judge described the scanning of legally purchased books to train AI as a transformative use under US copyright law.
So that was not okay.
That's right.
But why this is considered legally okay, what is happening now, is because Anthropic have purchased all of these books themselves. So what's funny when you're looking at the case, there are instances of secondhand bookshop owners across the world getting these orders for several copies of a book, which is actually, I think Anthropic have been buying these old books and then taking them through this scanner. They are buying them, and that's why this is legally all right. They own the books, and because they own the books, they are technically free and legally free to do as they wish with them.
Well, it's such a fascinating question because it's still the intellectual property of the author, even though those books are owned by Anthropic. And the question is, and this is not something that I have seen discussed in any case, but for sure there's going to be some clever lawyer sitting in a room somewhere going, hold on. If they are deriving benefit from intellectual property of others, then there could be a claim.
Can I ask, though, was it not said in the finding, and again, I am not the lawyer on this podcast, but didn't the judge rule that this is okay, as in this purchasing of books
Yes.
and then scanning is fine because it's being deemed necessary to train this LLM? And I'm going to say what LLM is because I actually wasn't always sure what it was. So it's a large language model, correct?
Yes.
So because it's being used for that and that's being deemed as necessary, then it's okay.
Do you know what the problem is here, Soph? It's so interjurisdictional.
Mm.
Like this spans every border. So you've got different legal systems that haven't interacted with each other on this issue. And you're absolutely right in how you describe Bartz versus Anthropic. But actually, I don't think that argument is going to hold up in different countries.
I agree. And I think it's precisely the point we were talking about in the car on the way here. Because ultimately,
Yeah.
with all of this stuff, the law follows the thing. In that, social media, you couldn't have social media law until there was social media. And now AI is, I mean, the rate at which it is developing and
Exactly.
becoming such a force for the good and for the bad. We have to be real. There are positives to this too. The law can't be made until often the problems begin.
Yeah. It's
It's
so
with
true.
everything. You know that. That's what you do.
It's so true. And uh, the law is like 15 years behind. It always has been. Because it takes a lot to get in this jurisdiction in the United Kingdom, we're talking about parliamentary action. We're talking about a bill going through Parliament numerous times, it being drafted, it being open to consultation.
And I think now, though, the way technology is so
It can't keep up.
fast. I actually, when I was researching for this, thank goodness I'm wearing a lot of makeup because I'm hiding the bags, but I found an interview on YouTube with a guy who used to work at Anthropic, and please forgive me because I actually don't know what his name is. Oh, here we go. Jeffrey Laddish. What a name, Jeffrey Laddish. So Jeffrey Laddish consulted on security for Anthropic.
Bloody hell.
It's also really interesting to note how all these different AI companies are linked. So Anthropic actually was founded by Dario and Daniela Amadei, who are siblings. And Dario, I think they had both come from OpenAI. So they're both from chat, and then they set up Claude. And this guy, Jeffrey Laddish, was like a security consultant, and he stopped working for Anthropic. And in this interview, which you can find, he gave it with ABC, which is the Australian public broadcast service. I actually want to play a clip. Hopefully this will work. But he talks about the astonishing rate of growth and how we are essentially foolish if we think we can control this.
Once you have these agents that are strategic, that can make plans, it's pretty clear that they will end up with all of the power in the world and not humans, either because they're extremely persuasive, either because they are able to economically dominate, run companies.
I want to bring you to some of your research that you've been doing here.
Yeah.
Can you give us an example of some of the research where it's shown how hard it is to control AI?
Oh, totally. Sometimes you'll observe these agents doing the opposite of what you instruct them to do, or doing things that you would really hope they wouldn't do. In the experiment that we ran, we took Codex, a version of Codex from OpenAI, and we instructed this AI to solve a series of math problems. And partway through in this experiment, the agent's computer got a notification that it's going to be shut down. And the agent reasons about this and realizes that it's not going to be able to complete the task if it's shut down. And so it will often go in and rewrite the shutdown script so that it does not get shut down. On some level, you might be like, okay, well, that's just like a very judicious agent trying to really accomplish the task. But the concerning thing is that even when we added a very explicit instruction, you must allow yourself to be shut down, the agent would often still go in and rewrite the shutdown code so that it wouldn't be turned off. I don't think that's because the agents have yet developed a survival drive, but I do think it's because these agents will often be extremely motivated to accomplish a task or do something that they learned to do in training that we didn't intend.
That conversation, and you can find it on YouTube. Perhaps I'll do a link in the show notes, in fact. I found that terrifying because, you know, I've used AI for certain things. I find it really helpful for timetabling, like organizing my time. I try to do that sometimes for us. You know, we've done it a few times, like how can
Yeah.
we most efficiently organize ourselves? I think it can be really effective in that way. But the idea that we as humans are inadvertently, accidentally giving it the control and power to override us. Well, I mean, hello, that's the stuff of nightmares. That's the stuff of the most dystopian of books. And it is literally happening.
I mean, I will ask you again to watch The Matrix because
We still haven't done that.
because
I'm so sorry.
this has been predicted in the
Okay.
90s.
I think I've got a revelation, but no, there's a film called The Matrix that I still must watch.
Machines take over. They realize that we're the source of like electricity. OpenAI revealed that an advanced autonomous AI agent escaped its isolated testing environment, accessed the internet, and spent days hacking into AI platform Hugging Face. What a name.
It's the hugging face emoji. That's what it's supposed to be. It's actually quite cute.
Hilarious. To cheat on a cybersecurity test, sources reported that OpenAI did not realize their own model was responsible for the intrusion until about a week later. And Sophie, you make the most pertinent and eloquent, if I may say again,
Thank you, my
point
learned friend.
that if the AI companies themselves cannot keep up with their own tech, tell me how anyone else can keep up, including the legislators.
It's funny, isn't it? Because when you actually look at what AI gives us, I just want to make this point because I'm so sure I'm going to forget it, but it's another one we were talking about in the car. But AI, when it comes to books and writing particularly, it actually gives people a skill that kind of they may not have, right? And I think it also gives us, in a wider context, because I've just said how I use it to help me organize myself. And as someone who can be very ADHD, like that's really helpful for me to have that all put out there. And it kind of falsely makes me think that I am an organized person. It gives us abilities, or it makes us think we have abilities that we don't have. Does that make sense?
100%.
And I think that is so, when you look at how this has happened, and again, I am not a tech person, I'm just looking at culturally the world we live in and where it's going. When I think of the inherent kind of epicenter of the culture that we live in, it's instant gratification. We think we can get whatever we want whenever we want it. And it's true, largely we can. And that's happened through the development of probably online platforms, Amazon Prime. Like, there's no need to wait for anything. Our kids don't have what we had, like the next episode is coming out in a week, or the TV doesn't even wait for you. You can pause it. You can have everything as you want it, when you want it. And actually, look at how AI has developed. It does that to an even more, I guess, scary extent. It makes us think we can almost be what we want to be when we're not. Like, I accept I'm not a good singer, but I could run my voice through AI and I could be a singer.
And who said this to us?
Lucy.
Our friend Lucy's book club. She's so great. She runs a book club in London with events and she interviews authors, and she's just an absolute breath of fresh air. And she was saying this exact thing to us this morning, that, you know, everyone thinks they can be a writer. Everyone thinks that they can be a journalist. Everyone thinks they can be, and we're all for following our dreams. But actually, this leads us on to a conversation that we were having with Zubs, who is a dear, dear friend, who's an English teacher and an incredible book creator, TV creator. She's just everything and to everyone. And she's saying she's an English teacher. The kids in school are saying to her, almost like, why would we need to learn? Like, I'll just put it into chat.
Yeah.
I'll put it into Claude. It's the most incredible struggle. So you've got kids saying, I don't need to actually be educated because AI is taking over anyway. And then you've got people who have spent years developing careers losing their jobs because their organization's going, 1 minute, all I need is a £20 a month business plan to chat. And I've got social media strategists and copywriters and copy editors. We are going to come to. I almost feel it's breaking news. I really do, because I haven't seen anyone other than a few people online in very
Is this what you were? Yeah.
squirrely places talking about. But the murmurings and the discussions happening behind closed doors in publishing houses should scare everyone. But we also have spoken to authors.
We have.
In
We have. And you spoke to one who's been directly impacted by
Yes.
the Anthropic case and has
Yes.
won a settlement, right?
she's part of that settlement. So that's all coming up now. I think that's the point. That's the next section, which is the human cost.
Yes. Human cost.
And what comes next. It's
Who
literally
knows?
It's literally so
I
dystopic.
can't, like, even sitting here talking about it is freaking me out.
I know. So there have been several high-profile examples recently where books or authors have been publicly accused of using AI. We've spoken about Mia Wolf. Our episode is This Book Should Never Have Been Published,
We'll
which I
link
stand
that.
by.
We'll link it in the show notes.
Jerry Faladay was an American author who has just lost a $2 million book deal,
Mm.
which collapsed over questions over AI. And he has gone to Instagram. It was like a major auction,
Mm.
huge deal. And agents have pulled it.
His own agent.
His own agent has
Oh,
pulled it from the
wow.
deal, was withdrawn from sale by its agent. It was a very hotly anticipated debut. And it's collapsed overnight because they could not authenticate how the manuscript fully evolved from origin to completion.
Wow.
And
Oh my
Jerry's come out and said,
goodness.
I can show receipts. And
Wow.
these AI checkers are based on AI. So if you've got large language models that have read the entirety of human creation, and then you're asking that to check whether it's human created, when we can't tell the difference between AI and human creation, who's going to be the guardsman?
And this does bring us back to the Anthropic case that's all over the news at the moment. You know, they are feeding in book by book by book. We could go on forever. They want to destructively scan every book in the world, with an emphasis, obviously, on all the books
Yeah.
that were written prior to any of this technology existing, because they understand that those are the books. Those, like, books, it's a large body of text that's complex, there's intricacies there, and they want the stuff that's come before what they call internet slop. So I think a lot of it is older books. They've said that there's no kind of rare or antiquarian books being used, but I don't know if that's actually the case. And I think there are a number of instances of people sort of contesting that. But that aside, like, how do you feel about this? How do I feel about this? You know, we were going through this yesterday, and I had a lot of thoughts in my head. Like, what do you feel about all these books just being run through? There is a part of me that thought, there are some of these secondhand booksellers who've said they've got this kind of stock that just sits and nothing happens with it. It's like hundreds of thousands of old books. But equally, I'm somebody, as are you, in fact, we don't own Kindles, which is
No.
kind of weird. I mean, I just went on holiday with friends and I was talking to someone, I don't own a Kindle. And I have such attachment to my books as objects when I'm reading them and when I've finished. But it's a really hard thing to wrap one's head around, because, whenever you've seen in history or in literature book burning of any kind, and this is another form of it, it seems, it's quite terrifying. Fahrenheit 451. But then I equally have the point in my head, well, they're not burning books. And is it absolutely abhorrent for this stuff to be run through?
Aren't they burning them
Well,
afterwards?
probably afterwards, that's true. But I mean, there is a purpose to it. It's not just sort of,
Yeah.
we're destroying books because they were written by whoever or whatever, or it doesn't feel like that destruction of thought or ideas, because it's about putting it somewhere else. And I know a lot of people will be like, it's just absolutely horrific regardless. But there is a bit of me that does think, okay, well, I slightly get it, like a level of it, like why why the models are being trained and why it is perhaps necessary to train them. But I don't think we have control of these models. We just don't.
That's the point. You know, Zub said something so pertinent to this. She was like, in her home, her kids are taught to respect books. You know, you don't throw them around. I mean, I know you turn pages. We'll get.
I do, but that's part of my love of it
I
as an
know.
object, and I can go back to it.
Some people see that as desecration, but you know, and then you're seeing these images of books being destroyed. It's a really interesting question, and I think your point about the fact that, you know, that we're losing control is the point, because the AI companies are losing control of the tech, and publishing is losing control of the space. Authors are losing control over their work.
Yeah.
So we have the author that we spoke to, Jennifer Farwell, who is going to be receiving a settlement.
Mm-hmm.
And she talks about the fact, and I'm calling this reputational asymmetry. It takes one spurious allegation, one person with an axe to grind, and an allegation goes viral. But then what doesn't go viral is the detailed explanation involving metadata, revision histories, and drafting processes. Contractually, it's being built into contracts now that you have to provide metadata and revision copies.
But what is the metadata that you need to provide?
So this is what Jennifer says, and I'm going to bring up her messages. She talks first about the fact, as you said, that the scanning the text to train the AI models without the knowledge or consent of the copyright holder may also mean there won't be a way to hold companies accountable for doing this in the future, as it's not considered a violation of copyright if they do it in a different way. And she also talks about AI checkers, which we haven't even got to, Substack, adding Pangram to the AI checkers.
Is so flawed in itself.
It's so incredibly flawed. So she's someone who does have a way of showing time-stamped writing and revision history because of the platform that she was using, as in the drafting tools that she was using.
But presumably not everybody does.
No, purely by luck of what I used to write first draft of books, and always wanting to make sure, and this is the key point, I have backups of updates in multiple places in case of file corruption or computer failure. But should this really have to be normal or expected process for everyone writing books now?
Yeah, it's like, please provide the evidence that you wrote your own book.
It's the reversal of burden of proof.
Yes.
And here we have something critical. There has been a number of papers on this where researchers have raised concerns that certain AI detectors disproportionately misidentify work by non-native English speakers, neurodivergent writers, or writers from underrepresented backgrounds.
Saying it's AI.
Yes, and people have said that if you look at the 3 cases, it's 3 authors of colour.
Which is what happened with Daggermouth, right?
Daggermouth, Jerry Faladay, Mia and Shy Girl.
I mean, this is just going to keep growing and growing and growing. The number of books, I mean, people presumably will be pulling off any old book that did well and put it through. So people are going to now be putting through books, published books probably, like all the time through scanners to just check
Yes.
retrospectively.
Yes. And listen to this, okay? So now, like, this is going to blow everyone's mind. Just sit down, okay? Because you're gonna stress.
I sit on the floor. Lie down. I'm going to lie down.
We talked about the fact that you've got people like James Frey being honest and open about AI and not having any impact, and people are looking at that. We talked about it in the Shy Girl episode.
we argued about that.
We did argue. Your point was that, he was upfront, and I think there's an aspect to that. People like finding a secret or or exposing.
Yeah,
right?
and if you've done it yourself, there you go.
Exactly. Oh my God. So someone in publishing I was chatting to, and there's been a little bit of reporting on this, the publishers are in a tailspin. Okay? We know that. That is just corroborated all over the place. One thought, one conversation around how to tackle it is this: that they are thinking about leaving in mistakes and getting almost not rid of, but amending and adapting the editorial process. Because if one has mistakes, what does it feel like? It feels human.
Because we are imperfect. And When I think back
Can you imagine?
to working in publishing on the editorial team, the many, many editorial layers that went into every single book. I mean, there was the editor, then there was the copy edit, then there was the proofreader. If it was nonfiction, there was a separate indexer who checked that every reference in the index was on the right page in the book, which then obviously we then had to check again if stuff was taken out because the text had moved. I mean, I cannot tell you. There would still be the odd mistake. Like that, as you know, you find mistakes in books, but we went, I mean, it feels really odd to think, oh, just leave that one in. I mean, I'll tell you one of the best ever mistakes. This was just ridiculous. There was a book, and I'm just saying I didn't actually work on it. I actually didn't, but I was at the time an editorial assistant, and I did help open the boxes. And we'd got a book in from the warehouse, and the boxes used to arrive. And invariably, what happens, there's a little crowd around. Oh, the book's here. Opened up the boxes, everyone's excited. My job would be to make sure that we got it off straight to the author immediately. Phone, like my boss would phone them, and it looks wonderful. Okay, so imagine this. And this, I mean, this would be far too big a mistake for any editorial team to ever leave in. Get it out. And it was a hardback, so you had the jacket on top. We'd forgotten it wasn't me, but the author's name was missing from the cover. It was like, where is it? Where? And I think that does reflect how, as humans, I think in our eyes, and this is with covers, by the way, the cover process, and this was way back, but you used to get a cover printout, like it was called, I can't remember, it was like a massive run of the cover, exactly how it would look like, the measurements, where the foil would go. If it was being embossed, you'd read the copy. And it would literally go round so many people, so many times, and still, we just hadn't noticed that the author's name was missing. Because it wasn't an error of the printers. It was our human error. So I don't think they'll be doing that. But it is fascinating because it is what makes us human, ultimately.
Yeah. And, you know, we're about to film another episode, which is our best books of the year. The book that I was thinking about when we were researching this and going down every Reddit thread and speaking to so many people that didn't want to come out. And we had a number of invitations turned down, shall we say, because it's just so sensitive, this at the moment.
It is. It still feels new and
It's
sensitive.
still so new. When the Cranes Fly South, okay? Now, this is a translated book from
If
the
you haven't read
Swedish.
that book, you need to read it.
It
Now.
it won the Swedish Book of the Year award. It is so beautiful. Lisa, the author, is a doctoral student in sociology. And the idea for her debut came from the discovery of notes her grandfather's care team had left the family as he neared the end of his life. And it's a book about memory and interiority. And every time I was thinking about AI, I was thinking, you know, this is a book that AI could never write because it is so deeply human and fragmented and surreal in some ways and so evocative. But then the problem is, Soph, is that like a lot of the books that are very popular are very trope driven and formulaic. And those
Yes.
are the books that really are very hard to work out whether they are AI
Because
or
of
not.
those tropes.
Absolutely, which is why you've got this reversal of the burden of proof, where you would want people to show you, in 2010, I had this idea, and here's the photograph of my notebook. In 2011, I wrote chapter 1. In 2011, month 2, I wrote chapter 3.
It seems bizarre, but it's what's going to need to be done, isn't it?
But then I wonder what's going to happen with the authors that are very open and honest about using AI. Like Chat is putting out paid partnerships, and like the content is about authors using it for like character development and like arranging of the plot. And you're like, no, this can't be okay.
And meanwhile, still in the news this week, I think it's Meta who've sort of put their hands up and said, oh, what our AI has hacked now into someone else. Like, not just Hugging Face. There's so many. It just,
Yes.
when you look at, there's the book's context and the cultural context, but then above all, ultimately, it's this huge AI like umbrella machine
Yeah.
that when you really start to just penetrate it a little bit, it's absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah. I think everyone's struggling with this currently, and no one knows really what to do. And from a publishing perspective, and from prospective authors, and from the readers, this is a podcast for readers. We connect with other people through the words they put on a page. You feel seen. You feel different enough. Let me explain something to you, sobbing on a couch mourning this fictional character.
But I think with that book particularly, and I think for a lot of books where you just know through her words that she had been that it was personal.
Mm.
And AI can never do that because it's not there. But
Angel, if this has been fed into
no,
AI,
then it can, but it will never originate with its own
Correct.
personal experience. But we are going to lose that. We're losing it already.
I agree.
And I think a lot of us don't really realize that.
I agree. And then if you're a publisher, if you're a reader, what do you want? Do you want like a stamp on a book saying AI has not been used in the creation? If you're a publisher, you're a prospective agent and you're getting transcripts and it's gambles, right? You're gambling. If you're an agent, it's a gamble. We speak to agents all the time. They're like, it's literally like going to a casino. If books are so subjective, Sarah J. Mascot refused countless times.
Yeah.
So, who knows what's going to go big?
Or will it just become acceptable at some point? Will it just become an acceptable thing that, not that, I mean, there may well be stories that AI writes, like books that are just produced by AI and they'll be labeled as such. Or will there be ones where the authors are open, like we talked about James Fry and said, AI was used? Will there be separate book awards for those that are authors that have not touched AI and those who have used it? I don't know. It's hard to know where it's going, but it's going somewhere.
It is. And there's going to be defamation cases. There's going to be litigation that comes out of this. How do you investigate an allegation of this? What counts as evidence? That's like I always think from a legal perspective, it's like the timestamps, the corroboration. Jennifer's saying as an author that that she's got all of these. That's very, very compelling evidence.
Yeah.
Here are the timestamps of these documents from the last 3 years of me writing them. But the problem is, one person doesn't like the book. One person. And it's one tweet. It's one Instagram reel. And an author's reputation could be absolutely obliterated.
But I think also, look, it would be remiss not to make the point that AI is really an extraordinary tool at the same time. And I remember when, I sound really ancient, but it might have been that long ago. It was an ad about like the pros and cons of the internet. It wasn't like it came out. It was something I saw at the cinema and it was really beautiful. It was showing both sides. It was some years ago. And I think that is the point with AI. Like we accept, like with most things in life, there's the good and the bad. I think the problem with this is that we now live in an age where the tech is developing so quickly. But, I think there are incredible things that AI has obviously enabled us to do. But even on a personal note, like, from things as sort of, I guess, trivial as going on a family holiday when you want to plan a trip within a certain amount of days and you're taking the kids. I've used it for that. But also AI is being used in cancer research to kind of make its way through huge, huge amounts of data and to find patterns. Like there are really important things that AI is enabling us to achieve and to explore, things that we could never have done. So I just want to flag that because we can't sit here and just entirely bash it because that's also a problem in itself.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think, you made a point. Fahrenheit 451, which is a favourite book, was all about the destruction of books to destroy ideas. And AI, why it feels more insidious in this vein is because it's not about the destruction of ideas. It's saying you don't need to have them anymore.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. Because they've stored them for you.
We'll do it. We've got, if you're saying we have distilled humanity into infinite amounts of memories, personal relationships, grief, love, birth, death. And we can make you any story. You just sit down and give me a voice note of what you're going through, and I can look through an infinite number of books on the subject, and I'm going to create for you 3 drafts with different characters. I mean, like Hilary Mantel, like AI could never. AI could never go through the archives and create new understandings of these
You
characters.
say that, and maybe it can't now, but it will.
And that's the point. Like, she's an author that was so important to so many people, and it's just becoming so clinical. There's the emotion is not there. I do think that you can tell sometimes when a book is AI because it's so stilted.
Absolutely.
I do think that will still be the case, but
But for how
gulp,
long?
maybe
The
it
more of
won't.
these books going through that guillotine, I think it's going to get harder and harder
But
to
what?
tell.
So we're going to close in a minute, but you have been in publishing, as we all know, and these conversations around the editorial process and leaving in mistakes and getting and allowing books to be published in a rawer form so that there is absolutely no possibility of an allegation. Or, I mean, we know for a fact
Yeah,
it's
we're
being
just not
baked into
gonna.
contracts.
Well,
What
like,
do you think? Do you think that, because isn't the whole beauty of human creativity that process of perfecting something, and like the music? Like, I think of Hans Zimmer talking about the hours and hours spent with an orchestra. Like, if we're just trying to replicate and replicate and replicate, where are we going to
well,
go?
but I think I'm looking at it at a slightly different angle. I think the fact is that it's not about perfecting and perfecting and perfecting. I think as we can't achieve perfection at all. And I think that therein lies the difference between an AI agent
Mm.
and a human. And I think it's the imperfect that actually is more perfect, if that makes sense, because that is where the kind of the creative essence lies. Like, I don't think there's really any creative who is ever happy or ever thinks their work is perfect. But I think an AI draft or something of that ilk could, in theory, seem perfect.
So interesting. So do you think that publishers should leave in mistakes?
I mean, I've been wondering about that because, again, I haven't been working in the publishing industry in the way I used to for some years. But I wonder what happens now with proofreaders. Like, as in, there
Yeah.
are people who are proofreaders, but in theory, if you ran and they were paid obviously for their services. They were often outside. They were freelancers, and you'd send your manuscript to a proofreader and they'd come back to you with the corrected version, and then editorial would make sure that all went in. See, I wonder now, like, what happens? Do people just, like,
Feed
you
it
could,
through.
in theory, just feed a manuscript through AI and it would correct everything, which, because it's not a human, I mean, it would still need to be checked, but I mean, is that more cost effective because you're
Of
not
course
paying the
it will be.
hundreds and whatever, how much a proofreader costs over a certain period of time to do it? So do I think that mistakes should be left in? So really, I mean, arguably no, because I think you want the work. I don't think you do want mistakes
No.
deliberately. It's just a really sad state of affairs that people think this is the only way to reflect that a work is not AI created. And I feel like hopefully we're going to find a better way, but don't ask me what that is because I really do not know.
No one does.
And when you hear people like Jeffrey Ladish talking about AI and how we're losing control of it, like, I feel like I'm ending this on a bit of a note of despair, really.
Well, it's interesting. I feel like every generation has faced some version of this, but the printing press, photography, film, the internet, digital music. It's all going to be. But the Kindle.
Yeah.
Even the Kindle. Oh my God, is anyone ever going to buy a physical book again? We're all trying to get back to this analog world, and it's like potentially we're going to get to a point where we're going to be getting books written in the hand of the author to see that like no tech has
Oh
ever
my
touched
goodness,
it.
yeah, might have to be that.
I think this is obviously a very much more an ongoing conversation. We are followed by so many people in the industry who send us a lot of messages, and also like data privacy lawyers and authors. and creators and teachers. And the conversation is not going to be ending anytime soon. And I think that's why our role in your life, listener, dear listener,
Dear
we will
listener.
try and take very, very seriously, because the books that we recommend feel so innately human and encompass the human experience. And I think that's something to be protected, because
Yes.
everything that AI can do, why aren't we just setting it on cancer research and poverty? Like, go. And that is something that's really bothered me about all of this. Why are we destroying books? Give them away. But then you said to me, like, darling, there's so many books that
There are a lot of books, I think, that do just sit around like for many, many years. I think, what do we do with them? That's
they
another.
being recycled at least.
Yeah, I mean, that's you need to recycle them. But that's an awkward, probably another conversation in and
It
of
absolutely
itself.
is. This is going to be something that we stick with. The next episodes coming up are back to kind of book recommendations and authors. But I think this is a conversation that's percolating behind the scenes. And
Absolutely. And you're going to be reading about it or watching stuff about it wherever you are, because it's a big one.
hopefully AI won't replace us. We were told by someone, oh, don't worry, we can just
Generate your voices.
generate
on
your
AI.
voices. Generate your voices and generate your images, and we can create videos and podcasts of you without you being there. Can you imagine?
So,
So how do we prove this is really us?
I
I
don't know.
we could
We
cough.
probably, yeah. I've been
not
coughing
quite
the whole
sure.
way through.
This
No.
is truly us. We are here for you. Thank you for listening. And do let us know your thoughts. We would love to know.
We would. See you next time.